This is VK3CSJ in Narre Warren South. Please stand by for this morning's WIA broadcast at 9 a.m. on 1825 kHz in the 160 metre amateur radio band.
It's time to get your news on. This broadcast is in text, audio and video and is accessed on wia.org.au.
Hey, congratulations. You've hit the right switch. You've got the WIA National News for week commencing May 4, 2025, the weekend of the WIA AGM. And this week, VK2LAW delves into the IARU after their 100-year celebrations. VK2MV has an in-depth look at a Queensland State School Radio Club, a big secret. And in real depth, WIA President VK3KJ and this weekend's WIA AGM in Bendigo. Now wait, there's more, much more in this edition of news from your WIA. I'm Editor Graham, VK4 Baker.
We are VK1 WIA. Now, operational news with VK4 FUQ. Felix.
Hello there. Now, contest-wise 2025. May 17-18 is East Sangster Shield. QRP CW on 80 metres, wind back the rig to give 5 watts and give it a go. Don Edwards Memorial Slow Morse Contest, May 17-18, 80 metres on the evening of Saturday 17th May, and 40 metres the afternoon of Sunday 18. VK Shires Contest, 7th and 8th June. NZ Straight Key Night, Sunday 8 June, 0800 hours to 0900 hours UTC on 80 metres. VHF UHF Field Days, Winter 2025. Saturday 21 June through Sunday 22 June. The field days provide VHF UHF operators with the opportunity to head for the hills and see how far distant and how many stations they can work. The field days have separate sections for single and multiple operator stations. The duration of the field day is 24 hours. But there are also 8-hour sections for operators who may not be able to camp overnight. Notably, most club stations prefer to operate for the full 24 hours. IARUHF World Championship. The 24-hour IARUHF World Championship starts Saturday 12 July and ends on Sunday 13 July. Trans-Tasman Low Band Contest 19 July. Only contest bands 160, 80 and 40 metres are allowed with SSB, CW and RITI or PSK. IOTA Contest 2025, 19 July. RSGB IOTA Contest, July 26 to July 27. Remembrance Day Contest, 16th and 17th of August. Now the DX window to the world. Well, you may not be allowed to work them, but you may hear them. Once again, Italian radio amateurs have been authorised to use the 40 MHz band until the end of the year. They are allowed to operate from 40.660 MHz to 40.700 MHz with a maximum power of 10 watts. The Italian regulator has also given permission until 31 December also for 70.1, 70.2 and 70.3 MHz. Just last week, Jason, BK2LAW, brought us news of the special event station in Japan, 8K3 EXPO. Now word of another station celebrating this expo in the Kansai Kingi region, JA3XPO. This station, JA3XPO, is a mobile commemorative station that will travel to each of the Kansai prefectures. The call sign, originally used for the 1970 Japan World Exposition in Osaka, has been revived after 55 years. Both 8K3 EXPO and JA3XPO are on the air now and conclude at World Expo's end, October 13, the full duration of the expo. A very large number of Russian stations using the special prefix RP80 are QRV now until May 9 to mark the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II. The Guernsey Amateur Radio Society will operate special event station GU80 LIB on 9-11 May to celebrate the 80th anniversary of the liberation of the Channel Islands at the end of World War II. For WIA National News, I'm Felix, VK4FUQ, Edingham.
We are VK1 WIA. Now, international news with VK2 LAW Jason.
Hello. The RSGB participated in the International Amateur Radio Union Region 1 interim meeting in Paris last weekend. The event was of particular historical significance as it coincides with the centenary of the founding of the IARU in 1925, as well as the 75th anniversary of the establishment of IARU Region 1 in 1950. The French Host Society, REF, is also marking its 100th anniversary. This year's meeting in Paris reflected a broader scope than in previous years, and for the first time includes youth matters on the agenda. It also covers the usual focus areas of HF, VHF, UHF and microwave, and also electromagnetic compatibility. The RSGB has been a key contributor to the meeting, submitting papers that include future options for the 23-centimetre band and the harmonisation and protection of HF bands. 3 delegates from the RSGB attended the meeting, including newly appointed RSGB President Bob Beebe, Golf Uniform 4, Yankee Oscar X-Ray. The meeting served as both a celebration of amateur radio's rich heritage and a forward-looking forum to address the challenges and opportunities facing the global amateur radio community. In celebration of IARU's centenary, the RSGB has created a webpage to share information about its part in the celebrations. This includes a link to an RSGB archive video from the IARU meeting in Paris in 1950, as well as the RSGB's July 1925 T&R Bulletin that contains an announcement detailing the formation of the IARU. Web URLs in the text edition of Australia's ham radio news service. Barry Lewis, Golf 4 Sierra Juliet Hotel honoured at Paris IARU meeting. Congratulations to Barry Lewis, Golf 4 Sierra Juliet Hotel, who has been given the IARU Diamond Award at the IARU Region 1 interim meeting in Paris. The award is given to an IARU volunteer of long standing who has provided services over a significant number of years and shown exceptional diligence during a long period of service. In addition to his work for the IARU, Barry volunteers as the RSGB Microwave Manager. And still with IARU news, the International Amateur Radio Union, which has just marked the 100th anniversary of its founding, is using the occasion to look within and to consider a way it can be reconstructed. The IARU's Administrative Council has released a consultation containing an overview and a number of proposals. Region 2, which covers North, Central and South America, will be hosting 2 informational meetings on the Zoom platform where Region 2 societies can discuss the document, ask questions or recommend changes early May. For WIA National News, in Sydney, I'm Jason, VK2LAW.
From here, there and everywhere, you've tuned to the Wireless Institute of Australia's National News Service. We are VK1WIA. Now, special interest group news with Bruce, VK3FFF.
And a very good day to you. Worldwide special interest groups, digital. While ham radio operators have been embracing digital mobile radio, DMR, the equipment is most often bought since, at least in early incarnations, it needs a proprietary codec to convert speech to digital and vice versa. But Q Radio Link decided to tackle a homebrew and open source DMR modem. The setup uses a Lime SDR, GNU radio and Codec 2. There are some other open DMR projects such as OpenRTX, so it is hopeful there are going to be more choices. The DMR modem, however, is only a proof of concept and reuses the MMDVM host code to do the data link layer. You might enjoy a video. The link is shown in the text edition of this, the WIA National News Service. Worldwide special interest groups, balloons. Dr. Hank Prunken, VK5XB, penned us a note through the week And given the overlap with interests in amateur radio, especially where GPS tracking, high-altitude ballooning and environmental sustainability intersect, he believes this will interest WIA National News viewers and listeners. Researchers seek sustainable solutions as weather balloon waste emerges.
Recent beach cleanup efforts in Warrnambool, on Victoria's southwest coast, have revealed an unexpected environmental issue: debris from weather balloons washing ashore. Volunteers have discovered remnants, including foam boxes with GPS and battery packs, launched from the Kenhook/Cape Grim Baseline Air Pollution Station in Tasmania as part of an international climate research initiative. Though these weather balloons are crucial for atmospheric data collection, their leftover components pose risks to marine ecosystems. Colleen Hewson of Warrnambool Beach Patrol noted increased sightings, prompting concerns about environmental sustainability. Scientists are testing more eco-friendly alternatives to reduce ecological impact without compromising research. The incident underlines the need to balance essential climate science with responsible environmental practices. Hank Prunkin, VK5XB.
Worldwide Special Interest Group's Final Frontier. NASA's annual Student Launch Challenge will bring middle school, high school and college students from around the US together to launch high-powered rockets and payloads on Saturday, May the 3rd. This will go all day or until the last rocket launches. Student teams will convene for the agency's 25th annual challenge at Bragg Farms, Alabama, near NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville. Live streaming will begin at 11:20 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time on NASA Marshall YouTube. Worldwide Special Interest Groups, Radio Amateur Old-Timers. Let's head west.
Hello everyone, this is Clive of VK6CSW, reminding you that tomorrow is the first Monday of the month, time for the Radio Amateurs Old Timers Club of Australia's May Bulletin to go to air. Perth members and friends are advised that this month's monthly luncheon will be held at the new venue of the 7 Mile Bar and Bistro, 501 Wanneroo Road, Balcatta. Full details can be found by visiting the new and much improved RAOTC website. Just put RAOTC in your favourite search engine, then navigate to Lunches. Be sure to check the club website for booking and travel information. This month we're offering another historic item from Alan Doble, VK3AMD. The latest club news will be included in the June Bulletin. Everyone, RAOTC members and non-members alike, is most welcome to listen in and to join in the callbacks afterwards. Full details of all transmissions, times, modes and frequencies can be found on the RAOTC website. Please note that the 10-metre transmission from VK8MA now starts at 0400 Zulu. If none of the transmission times suit you, you can download the audio file at any time from today from the club website. 7-3 from Clive, VK6CSW.
Thanks, Clive. And now, once again, tune in tomorrow for the May RAOTC Bulletin. Enjoy the program and please join them in the callbacks afterwards. Worldwide Special Interest Groups, Radio Amateur Young Timers, YOTA, Youngsters on the Air. Kyrie State School in Queensland has their own radio club. And with the details, Alec, VK2MV.
Thank you, Bruce. Stuart Dunk, VK4SDD, wrote to the WIA news station to tell us about this exciting news. In October 2019, David, VK4DNF, and Stuart were involved with the Tablelands Regional Council Get Ready Queensland program. This program runs workshops for Year 5 and Year 6 students to help them understand what emergency services do in a disaster. The program also teaches the children what they and what their families can do to prepare and to help minimize the impact disasters can have on them. David and Stuart ran a session on introducing the idea of two-way radios as a way to get help when traditional methods such as mobile phones and landlines are unavailable. It was at one of those sessions that a teacher expressed an interest in amateur radio. When told of the technical nature of the amateur service, the discussion turned to STEM and benefits to the Kari State School Year 5 and Year 6 enrichment program. A plan that involved to run amateur radio training sessions as part of the enrichment program. The goal was to bring the students and teacher up to a high enough level to attempt a foundation license assessment. Stewart ran training sessions as an advisor to the teacher for 1 hour a week in Term 1, 2022. Very quickly, the students became interested in the technical and practical aspects of amateur radio. From those beginnings, the Kari State School Radio Club VK4 KSS was born. Thanks to Tablelands Regional Council's Senior Disaster Management Advisor Sarah Dean, VK4 SLD, the council donated 15 UV-5R handheld radios, an ICOM IC 7300 transceiver, a power supply, broadband dipole and mast, all paid for with grant funding from Resilience Queensland. For more on the Kari State School Radio Club and their achievements, you will have to read about it in a future edition of AR Magazine. Please keep those VK Yoda stories coming in. And for WIA National News, I'm Alec, VK2MV, and for this week only in Bendigo.
Thanks, Alec. Worldwide Special Interest Groups Rescue Radio. Over 280 amateur radio operators volunteered during the 129th running of the Boston Marathon last month. Operators were working at virtually every location connected with the race, including the starting line, the entire course and the finish line, transportation and various operations centres, including the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency, the State EOC Unified Command Centre and the BAA Race Operations Centre in Boston. Bob Macedo, KD1CY of the Boston Athletic Association Communications Committee, said, "This is one of the largest public service events amateur radio supports in the United States, and planning started over 6 months in advance." I'm Bruce, VK3FFF from sunny Bendigo.
From here, there and everywhere, you've tuned to the Wireless Institute of Australia's National News Service on VK1WIA.
This is WA President Scott Williams, VK3KJ, and welcome to all listeners to the WIA news broadcast this week. This weekend has been a huge couple of days for the WIA, with our AGM taking place in Bendigo, Victoria at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Saturday the 3rd of May. The AGM was held in conjunction with the Bendigo Amateur Radio and Electronics Club, BARAC, who are holding a technology festival on the Sunday the 4th of May at the Bendigo Showgrounds. The AGM was held at the beautiful historic Shamrock Hotel and was also made available via Microsoft Teams, so it was great to connect with so many members across Australia and some from around the world. I would like to read to you my President's address at the AGM. It not only covers the performance of the WIA, but also outlines important activities of the WIA throughout 2024. More importantly, it acknowledges the wonderful contribution of so many people who make the WIA the trusted peak body of amateur radio in Australia. My address. Like last year, I'm going to keep my President's report short and to the point, as there are already a considerable amount of information that has been supplied within the annual report, and I'm mindful there is still a fair bit to get through today. As reported, the WIA membership dropped to 2,908 members in 2024. This is a reduction of 24 members on 2023. This reduction also included 23 members that sadly became silent keys. The WIA acknowledges the difficult 12 months of 2024 with significant cost of living pressures, and this is one of the reasons the board resolved in 2024 to freeze membership fees at $95 for another year. It is now 10 years, in fact, 2014, since membership fees were last increased, despite the Institute absorbing significant increases in operating expenses over this time. We acknowledge the loss of some members, about 0.8% if you remove silent keys. However, the board believe that challenging economic times, despite this small loss is disappointing, it is also understandable. Of the 24 members that did not renew their membership, many cited that it was for financial reasons. Many also said they would reactivate their membership in the future when cost of living pressures reduce. I'm pleased to report that as of last week, the WIA had 2,942 members. That is more than in 2023 and, of course, more than in 2024. So our membership is trending in the right direction. We're currently seeing around 10 new members each month, and again, it's pleasing to see the return of some past members. We've made some advancement in our IT systems, and in November 2024, automated renewals and reminders were implemented. This was previously a very manual-driven process with considerable time spent. However, the new process has improved consistency and reduced resource time internally. One of the next projects is to introduce payment instalments for membership, which we hope will assist our members financially. The goal will be to allow members to pay in instalments automatically via direct debit or credit card. We hope to have this operational in the coming months, and we had hoped to commence this new benefit from the start of 2025, but unfortunately this project was delayed. The WIA also commenced development of our new website. Work is well underway, and a South Australian-based company is undertaking the development work. The current WIA website is complex, busy, and not a very friendly site to navigate. The new site will have a fresh contemporary look with easy navigation and will be user-friendly. Content is being populated in the background as we speak, and the site will be launched sometime in the coming months. I'm delighted to report the WIA has reported a modest surplus of $23,429 and also closed with a net asset position at the 31st of December 2024 of $923,615, up from $475,186 in 2023. The material change in our net asset position is due to the re-evaluation of the WIA National Office located in Bayswater, Victoria. The building was professionally valued in 2024 at $850,000, where previously it was shown in our balance sheet valued at $425,000. I'd like to again acknowledge the generous bequest provided by the late Henry Anderson, VK8HA, who allowed the WIA to invest in a building and build today what is a very strong financial position with a balance sheet approaching $1 million in net equity. The WIA also has a strong cash position of around $350,000 made up of cash on hand and term deposits, placing us in a very strong position. The WIA has never been in better financial shape, and even taking into account membership fees received in advance, our financial position is strong. The WIA continues to take its role very seriously as exclusive member of the ITU and IARU from Australia. Attendance at events continues to be financially demanding on the WIA. However, we do this to represent and protect your interest in the amateur radio community. In 2024, the WIA funded Peter Young, VK3MV, as a delegate of the WIA to attend the IARU Region 3 conference in Bangkok. The WIA thanks Peter for his contribution and efforts to represent the WIA. Several WIA directors also took part remotely as observers to the conference. I would personally like to thank Dale Hughes, VK1DSH, Peter Picorni, VK2EMR, and Peter Young, VK3MV, for their ongoing support to the WIA and for all the work they do with the ITU and IARU representing Australia's interest for all amateur radio operators. Can I also thank Noel Higgins, VK3NH, for his work with Standards Australia. I'd also like to acknowledge the wonderful work of Graham Kemp, VK4BB, with bringing you the broadcast every week without fail. Roger Harrison, VK2, ZRH, and the PubCom Committee for bringing you the AR magazine on time, every time, and a special mention to the Education Committee chaired by Amanda Hawes, VK1WX, for their outstanding work in the education area in 2024. The other huge task in 2024 was WIA's submission to the ACMA on class licensing. The WIA spent considerable effort consulting the amateur radio community, gaining feedback from surveys, holding online briefing sessions, and of course submitting a very comprehensive and balanced response. Not all areas of class licence introduction has been smooth sailing, and there continues to be some areas of concern that have been identified. The WIA will continue to work with the ACMA on hopefully a positive resolution. Just in the past weeks, we have undertaken a comprehensive survey with over 1,300 individuals participating, which allowed the WIA to make a further submission with clear evidence to the ACMA on areas that needed addressing. The lack of authoritative call sign certificates and the lack of an online register have been areas that the WIA has made a strong submission to the ACMA seeking change. There was also a huge amount of work in 2024 in documenting the repeater and beacon licence frequency coordination standards known as Rally AA1, AA2, AA3 and AA4. The work on these documents, which required the approval of the ACMA to be published, was tireless, and I'd like to acknowledge the work of the WIA Technical Advisory Committee chaired by Grant Willis, VK5GR. I don't want to single out one individual, however, the work undertaken by Grant Willis was outstanding, and I know it involved many months of work. Thank you, Grant, and to all of the committee that contributed. May I also acknowledge and thank the Spectrum Strategy Committee for all the work you've done through 2024, chaired by Justin Giles Clark, VK7TW. The work of the Technical Advisory Committee, Spectrum Strategy Committee and Regulatory Liaison Group, also chaired by Justin, has allowed the WIA to become a trusted voice and strong advocate for amateur radio. In closing, I'd like to take this opportunity to express my thanks to my fellow board members for their ongoing support of the WIA. I would also like to thank the tremendous contribution and effort of all of our committee members and volunteers. There are several hundred volunteers that day after day, week after week, step up to serve the amateur radio community here in Australia. I cannot express strongly enough, and I've said this before, and I will continue to say it, our success is due to our strong membership base and the wonderful volunteers that work tirelessly in the background. By supporting the WIA, it enables the Institute to represent you and evolve amateur radio in Australia at every level. As a volunteer-based not-for-profit organisation, the WIA is always seeking the skills of members that can extend the scope, efficiency and effectiveness of the WIA. We openly encourage suggestions for improvement and invite constructive feedback. It is volunteers with a passion for the expansion, reinvention and relevance of the hobby that will see us enjoy further success as the WIA continue our march to our second centenary anniversary. So please continue to provide feedback, but more importantly, please be prepared to put your hand up and help. Good things happen when people turn up to participate. Remember that the WIA is your trusted voice within the amateur radio community, and our voice is amplified with great impact and effectiveness with your support. I personally thank every member for your ongoing loyalty and membership of the WIA. It has been my pleasure to serve you as the President of the WIA in 2024, and I look forward to the year ahead. I remain immensely proud of the WIA and grateful for the opportunity to lead the national peak body for amateur radio in Australia with 110 years of proud history. Sincerely, Scott Williams. Look, that's it for me. I'll be back next week on the broadcast outlining a range of merit awards that were presented at the AGM to some significant contributors. But again, thank you for listening today. This has been Scott Williams, WIA President, on behalf of the WIA Board.
This news originates from the Wireless Institute of Australia. Dreaming, believing, achieving.
And with that, we wrap up the WIA National News. One on the social scene left for this month. May 10, it's the Moorabbin District Amateur Radio Club's Hamfest. Happens at 10 a.m. As I said, May 10. Now until next we meet, I'm Graham VK4 Baker. Walk softly.
From Australia, this has been the Wireless Institute of Australia with the weekly news service. This broadcast is in text, audio and video and is accessed on wia.org.au.
Courtesy of Bevan, VK5 BD's ATV and YouTube channel, this has been WIA National News. We're back now, live and local, and your voice, your callbacks. And don't forget, tick like.
You're tuned to VK3 CSJ. Stand by for the RAOTC News Bulletin. All correspondence, please send to vk3csj@gmail.com. Signal reports and the like to vk3csj@gmail.com. Please stand by for the Old Timers News.
Hello there, this is VK3OTN, the official station of the Radio Amateur Old. Hello there, this is VK3OTN, the official station of the Radio Amateur Old-Timers Club of Australia, with a monthly news broadcast for members and friends of the club for May 2025.
An important announcement for members and friends in Perth. Monthly lunchtime meeting venue change. As you may know, Perth members and friends are sampling various meeting venues to determine which one will be the most suitable for the longer term. This month's meeting is on Tuesday, May the 13th, and will be held at the 7 Mile Bar and Bistro, 501 Wanneroo Road, Balcatta. A seniors menu is available in addition to the main menu. Their website is 7 Mile Bar and Bistro. Just repeating that, the website 7 Mile Bar and Bistro. The venue is close to the intersection of Wanneroo Road and the Reed Highway and is readily accessible by car or by bus. Route and timetable information can be accessed from the Transperth website. Because Phil, VK6ZKO, the usual lunchtime coordinator, will be unavailable for the May meeting, Alasdair, VK6ATX, formerly VK6 Kilo India Foxtrot, is looking after the bookings. If you wish to attend the lunch at Balcatta on May the 13th, please email Alasdair ASAP to confirm your attendance. His email address is vk6 Kilo India Foxtrot @bigpond.com. Once again, Alasdair's email address is vk6kif @bigpond.com. If you missed any of the foregoing, you can find it all on the new and much improved RAOTC website. Click on Lunches and this will take you to the Perth luncheons and all the details.
Thanks very much, Clive. This month, instead of the usual broadcast, we will offer an historical broadcast from years past. The usual news and information will be broadcast next month. I'm Andrew, the VK3 Charlie Alpha Hotel. I have broadcast files going back as far as 2001. Many of the older files aren't the greatest as far as technical quality goes, archived in either real audio or Windows Media audio format. These produced a smaller file size back in the days when the leading edge technology was dial-up internet. Remember that? This month we have an original broadcast from October 2002. Details on when to hear these news and information broadcasts are available at the club website www.raotc.org.au. The VK3 OTN is available on a wide range of radio platforms, HF, VHF and UHF, 2-metre repeaters, amateur television, DMR, that is digital mobile radio, and D-Star. These news broadcasts are available for download for up to 6 months, just in case you miss the original news broadcast from the RAOTC website. If you'd like to contact the club, then why not send us an email, raotc@raotc.org.au. I hope you enjoy this month's broadcast.
Hello there, this is Alan Goble on VK3AMD and associated relay stations as VK3OTN, the official call sign of the Radio Amateurs Old-Timers Club Australia Incorporated. As previously advised, we are now an incorporated body and we're also covered for public liability insurance under the cover organised for clubs such as ours by the New South Wales division of the WIA. Many more amateur radio clubs have taken advantage of this very good initiative by VK2. Do not throw away the September issue of OTN. As you will know, the centre pages carry the government-approved rules of association which we are bound to supply to you. The magazine also contains the other items which we are required to supply. The back cover gives notice of the annual general meeting and the nomination forms for committee membership. And to remind you of dates, times and frequencies of this monthly broadcast, it's been printed on the address sheet of the magazine and also on the inside front cover of ATN, so you have 2 aids to remembering to listen to it and to let us have your comments afterwards. New membership applications from now to the end of October will be acknowledged and a membership number allocated, but the membership certificate, which is individually printed, will not be available until early November, as Secretary Arthur Evans, VK3VQ, is away in Japan, and our membership secretary, Bill Roper, 3BR, is travelling in the USA and Europe. This is VK3OTN. Here in Melbourne, 54 members and friends had an enjoyable luncheon at the Bentley Club on September the 17th. Numbers would have been greater if several members had not found it necessary to apologise due to the onset of medical problems. Our guest speaker was Steve Mason, who is the long-time editor of Ink Emma Inc., the periodical magazine of the Australian Army Signal Special Wireless Association. This group copied German, Italian and Russian signals in the Middle East before returning to Australia and the Pacific after the attack by Japan. A very interesting story, and well told. In South Australia, members will meet for their annual luncheon on Thursday the 24th of this month. Venue is the Marion Hotel in Marion Road, Mitchell Park. Time is 12 noon for lunch at 12:30. Members who have a seniors card are asked to bring it along. Public transport bus 243 will get you there at stop 24. If you plan to be there, please book not later than the 20th of the month with one of the following. Jack Townsend, VK5HT, phone 82952209. Ray Dean, 5RK, phone 82715401. Or Ron Coate, VK5RV, phone 82966681. I'm sure it'll be a good show. In VK6 in West Australia, members are reminded that their next lunch time meeting at the Bayswater Tavern will be held tomorrow. If members attending are reminded to bring your name badge so you can claim the pensioner concession. And Clem 6ATN has sent us a story written by Lee Hitchens, VK6HC, about the early days of our club in VK6. It was too late for inclusion in this month. Clem also tells me that Lee turned 81 on September the 14th. That makes Lee exactly 10 years and 1 week younger than me. All the best, Lee. This is VK3OTN, the Radio Amateur Old-Timers Club. And please join me in welcoming to membership Steve Phillips, VK3JY, who becomes member number 1226, And Gary Ryan, VK2ZKT, who becomes member number 1227. Welcome, gentlemen. I hope you're listening today. This is VK3OTN. Cole Harvey, VK1AU, is asking for help in identifying the operator with the call sign VK2YK in pre-war years. The 1938 call book lists him as R.E. Abbott with his QTH as telegraph point. What Cole would like to know is the name or names that the letters R and E stand for, so he can identify him, and he's in the search for details about wartime service of amateurs. It's believed that this gentleman enlisted in the RAF in Sydney, and we're not sure whether or not he survived the war. Cole Harvey would appreciate any information you can give him. He will be taking part in the 40-metre callback this morning, and his telephone number is 02-628-13607. I'll repeat that, 02-628-13607. Looking for the Christian names of R.E. Abbott, VK2YK, pre-war. This is VK3OTN. I've been reading some very interesting books about widely different aspects of World War II activities. And one was published in England in 1955. It's a gripping story of cold-blooded courage, nothing to do with radio. It's the story of the Royal Navy team whose task was to disarm enemy mines that had been washed ashore, dropped from the air, or swept up. They had to learn by experience how to do the job, and a number of the team lost their lives in the process. The book lists 30 men who received awards in this service. These awards total 60, that's among 30 men, and the sheer courage involved can be appreciated if I give you a few examples of the awards granted. R.S. Armitage, the George Medal and the George Cross. In H.E. Wadsley, the DSC, the George Medal and the George Medal Bar. E.O. Giddon, the George Cross, the OBE and the George Medal. L.B. Goldsworthy, the George Cross, the DSC and the George Medal. There were no long service medals or Purple Hearts in the list. The book's well written with a lot of photos of the men involved and the types of mines they handled. The title is Service Most Silent. Service Most Silent. The author, John Frayne Turner. That's John Frayne, F-R-A-Y-N, Turner. The publisher was George Harriman Company Limited. An amazing story. This is VK3OTN for the Radio Amateur Old Timers Club. This next item is fairly lengthy, but it's about black AR7s, among other things. I had a phone call from a man who had used black AR7s with the serial numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. He's Joe Martin, VK3DEK, who joined Army Signals in 1940 and soon became part of the newly forming Special Wireless Group. He's written an account of his experiences for us, and we'll publish it in full in the next issue of OTN. Today I'll read you a series of extracts from it, and here we go. Joe says, those black AR7s. I'm not sure where or when I first set eyes on these sets, communication receivers number 1, or whatever the Army nomenclature of these sets was, but coming from an age of the Aussie knocker, I was not impressed. My doubts were confirmed by the serial numbers 1 to 5, which suggested to me that they were the first experiments off the production line, and no doubt there'd be many more starts in the nomenclature to bring them up to scratch. As I said, I was typical of the Aussie knockers of the time. I can't remember if we had them in action before going overseas, and in fact I don't think they'd been unpacked when we reached Egypt in March 1941. The first impact on my recollection was that we had to fit them into 3-ton trucks at Wefada, south of Athens. My impressions on seeing them in their packing cases was where did the wheels go? They certainly were not portable. With a couple of batteries thrown in for good measure, handling was a problem. It was decided to swing the batteries under the tray of the trucks, transporting the sets rigged up in their operating positions. The batteries were attached to the chassis in boxes which protruded about 6 inches outside the line of the trucks, which tested the skills of the drivers, negotiating the narrow roads through the mountains of Greece, especially against any oncoming traffic, Actually, most of the gorges had collected their quota of lost trucks before we got to them. Certainly the sets looked more business-like than the hotspots of receivers we tried out before leaving Australia, like the AWA communication receiver we had used to monitor overseas broadcasts. We were watching a variety of stations from Seymour, hoping to gain news of the pending invasion of Britain. But the only excitement I can remember is when Ronnie Baines demonstrated the efficacy of a mug full of petrol in a wood-burning room warmer. He said it wouldn't be harmful, and looking into the interior of the heater was just in time to catch a burst of flame which almost sent him into space. For a few days on arriving at El Amara, I was set on a TRF concoction dreamed up by one of our instrument mechanics to tune into the Italian nets. Luckily, after a week or so, I was sent up to the Royal Court of Sig's base at Sarafand in Palestine, and this was just a familiarisation trip, and several trips of this nature involving a dozen or so of our operators. I thought we were pretty effective as Morse ops, but the POMs left us for dead. Their main operations were directed toward the rapidly decreasing activities of the Italians operating in Somaliland, and also monitoring the domestic networks of the Arabs in Saudi Arabia. They'd been doing this since the First World War, and these nets were very efficient and had been designed by the Yanks, made out ex-hands. The Arabs used break-in procedures and were just about the fastest nets I listened to. Added to the speed was the use of washed letters, which the alphabet called for, and although not as complicated as the Japanese counter code, most of the time my pencil remained scratching my head. Like Japanese, it was easier to code and decode plain language, and so the resident code maker was held at Sarafand, a Captain Smith or something like that. Actually, he was a monk from the nearby monastery of Jerusalem, seconded to the army for the duration. He showed us some of the off-tourist sites of Jerusalem. The sets the POMs used were Eddystones, were much more compact than our black AR7s, and I'm glad to say were considered obsolescent. And in the process of replacement, they found their way to us on Crete after we had jettisoned our number 1 set somewhere outside of Athens. He comes back to that. When it was time to leave Crete, these Eddystones finished up in Suda Bay as we tracked across the island. But the Eddystones were in the process of being replaced by HROs, although the POMs tried out helicopters and Himalayan Super Pros, and on a later trip to Sarafand, I was detailed to watch the progress of the Germans on the Russian Black Sea naval bases using a Himalayan Super Pro. One day the OAC, Sarafand, Major Winterbottom, and their own CO, Captain Ryan, asked me my opinion of that receiver as compared to the HRO, and I plugged for the latter. It was one of those answers the COs wanted to hear. Perhaps that's how we came to get 4 receivers to bring back to Australia. Back to the Black AR7s, we got them up to about 30 miles south of the Albanian border at a site which for some inexplicable reason came to be known as Happy Valley. It was on a creek bed dry, which when wet would have flowed into the Lyacombe River. As was customary, we dug tent sites into the banks of the creek. In fact, Lord Hawhorse said that the only difference between the AIF and Worth Circus was the AIF had more tents. We also carried stones to reinforce the creek where we'd have to cross what would have been unpassable otherwise. We shouldn't have worried. We'd soon be, quote, straightening our lines, as it was called. We went into operation sometime about the last week in March, and shifts were arranged on a rotating basis over 24 hours with 3 men to each operating position. I took a position on the first shift, which started at 0800 hours, and we were given frequencies to watch from our parent headquarters in Sarafan, which no doubt was also watching that frequency. This duplication was necessary, HF communications being what they are. What we got, Sarafan or Malta, etc., could most likely miss. About mid-morning, an intelligent NCO popped his head under the canopy beside me and asked if I'd be off duty for the midday mess parade. He said I had to hit the jackpot, and the intelligence officer, Captain Fitzmaurice Hill, was going to make an announcement. He didn't, but the Captain Jack laid down the policy which summed up meant that the less the operators knew, the less they could divulge. Apart from that, it was a lucky throw of the dice that put an operator on a hot circuit. and that was to be the policy for the remainder of the war. But they only reckoned without Private Furphy. Private Furphy had it that the net had disclosed that Rommel's tanks were in the Western Desert, and the top brass were none too pleased. It was better ignored. How could Hitler set up his tanks across the Mediterranean? The British Navy, up to its neck at Matapan and elsewhere, would stop them. It was a theme to be repeated again and again. In fact, it started back in the days of the Melford Jutland. This is VK3ATN. Move on a bit. After a while, it dawned on me, this is a friend speaking, after a while it dawned on me that the plane had to be on course for our position and drop its bomb at a specific position, otherwise there would not be any threat. With this deduction at my fingertips, I explained to my split-trench companion, Keith Hart, and what the odds were, and pointed out an aircraft heading in our direction. I said, if that aircraft drops his bomb now, and it did, that was the only time during the war that I was terrified. Where the bomb went, I don't know. I can't remember hearing it explode. I scrabbled down to the bottom of the trench, rolled in a ball with jaws wide open and throat open to receive the effect of the concussion as I laid down an army drill. With something for the mind to latch on, I started our Lord's Prayer. Then the rest's a blank. Next, I was standing in the trench digging mud out of my rifle, for somehow it had been thrust smack down at the bottom of the trench. And we go on. This is VK3OTN. In the afternoon, we loaded back into our trucks and left the field in single file. We were at the wrong end of the loading when a hedge-hopping Messerschmitt came over the rise with machine guns blazing and unloaded. I was the last out and got about 10 feet from the tailboard of the truck. Flat on the ground, I looked over to my left and saw Nev Winton laying face downward along the line of flight. I saw the machine gun burst on the ground about 5 feet from his boots and another about the same distance from his head. Had he been crouching, he would have copped a lot. I didn't say anything to him. I don't even know if he knew how close it came to his end. I looked for a light break and I went for a better hole, but there was none. The aircraft didn't come back, so we filed back to our trucks. We lost one truck, which we had to tow. A bullet went through the radiator, knocked the knob off the gear lever, and made a big hole in the back of the driver's seat. He vacated his position at the first alarm. We kept straightening our lines and we came to a mountain range between Narasona and Larissa, where we found an old Turkish fort in a saddle on top of the range where excellent views of both places as well as a view of Mount Olympus to the north. We set up our receivers in the old fort, and to the east we could look down on Larissa and the aerodrome and just make out the movement of aircraft, etc. While to the west we could look over to Elisana and ponder whether the smoke was from our guns or those of the enemy. We set up our camp along the length of the road. The AAC officer in charge advised there was some activity going on with some interlopers down the road toward Elisana. He went down to tell them they were encroaching on a restricted area. The NCO in charge said that Captain Jack could call it what he liked, but he was setting up a rearguard anti-tank position and would be in action within the hour, and we could stay if we chose. It was no concern of his. And so we packed our black AR-7s into their boxes for the last time, and that was the last time I saw them. I suppose each set had totaled about 150 hours of active service. Skirting the bay around to Port Piraeus, we passed a number of large wooden crates lined up along the shore. Someone unkindly said they contained planes for our Air Force, and it might well have been so. When we got to Piraeus, the good ship Elsie, waiting for us to fill a drinking water tank, a medium of 4-gallon petrol tins, 2 to each man, carried a distance of about 150 yards, with only the wire handlers supplied, and the object was to get the ship's tanks and hand the tins over before the wire cut through our hands. In the meantime, the trucks diverted to some nearby gorge where they jettisoned their number 1 sets and our personal belongings. Until someday, archaeologists digging Greece might come up with a fossilized communication receiver. When the first lot of reinforcements joined us in Darwin, they brought with them a number of AR-7s. I was told they were improvements on the number 1 sets and modified to RWS specifications. But the only difference I could see was the nice shiny dials and panels. Years later, I acquired an AO7 through Feeder and Stan VK2SU and VK2DZP, and with the help of my friend the late George Nielsen, who restored it so beautifully, it found its way to the daughter of Kingsley Lowe. She'd never seen one. It was amazing, for the receiver found its use many years after the war and was the mainstay of receivers used by the DCA and for the reduction of the R20 about 1960. Thought it was an interesting Joe of the experiences with the black AR7s that we hunted for so long for the Sunwatch. The only museum which now has one. Thank you, Joe. This is VK3AMD, is VK3OTN, the Radio Amateur Old Timers Club. We invite interested amateurs to join the Radio Amateur Old Timers Club, Inc. There are two grades of membership. Full membership is available to those who have been licensed for 25 years or more, and associate membership for those who have been licensed for 10 years or more. Age doesn't enter into it. Subscriptions are currently $8 per annum, plus a joining fee of $5, and these figures apply to both grades of membership. Members get two interesting magazines each year, one in March and one in September. Associate members become full members automatically when the 25-year date comes up. Associate members cannot hold office in the club. That's the only difference. If you would like to receive a membership application form, please contact their secretary, Arthur Evans, VK3VQ, telephone 0395984262. I'll repeat that, 95984262, or myself, Alan Doble, VK3AMD, telephone 0395704610, repeat, 95704610. We're both QTH in any call book. And Arthur is away overseas at the moment. Be back in about 2 weeks' time. This is VK3OTN for Radio Amateur Old Timers Club. Excuse me. And there's something fishy about the next item, and you'll have to work it out for yourself. There's a chap who'd like to take his boat out in the bay for a weekly feed of fish. Over a long period, he couldn't help noticing that a man in another boat always caught many more fish than he did. He noticed the other man sometimes hang his line over the left side of the boat and sometimes the right. And whichever way it went, he always got a better haul. One day they met when they both came ashore about the same time, and our unnamed friend asked his successful rival how it came about. He made the choice between which side he cast his line from. The man explained that if his wife slept on her right side, that was the side he fished on the next day, and conversely, if his wife slept on the left side, he fished on the left side of the boat. Very interesting, said our friend. What about if your wife sleeps on her back? And the fellow said, oh, that's easy. That's easy. I don't go fishing. And on that happy note, I'll leave you to our next radio meeting on November the 4th. This is Alan Doble, VK3AMD, and associated relay stations as VK3OTN, the official call sign of the Radio Amateur Old Timers Club of Australia Incorporated. We're about to conclude our transmission for this month and hope you found it interesting. We'll be on the air again on Monday the 4th of November and Monday the 2nd of December. Times and frequencies can be checked in the current September issue of our magazine OTN. So please take part in the callback session on the frequency you've been listening to. But for now, thank you for listening in 73. This is Alan Doden, VK3AMD, is VK3OTN.
That's all we have for you this month, and we hope you found something of interest. Thanks for being with us, and we hope you will join in the callbacks, where callbacks are taken. The next RAOTC News and Information broadcast will take place on the first Monday of next month, on the same frequencies, and at the same times as today, with the exception of January. If you have missed all or part of this broadcast, or you just want to listen to it again, it is available for download from the RAOTC website. Simply go to www.raotc.org.au. Again, the website URL is www.raotc.org.au. On the right-hand side is the main menu. Click on VK3OTN Broadcasts, and you will be able to see the various times and frequencies of the VK30TN transmissions by all of our volunteers, provided of course a volunteer is available. Down towards the bottom of the page is the current and previous 5 broadcasts for you to listen to. Sometimes the relay station is an automated broadcast, for example, a repeater, where no operator is available to take callbacks. Other times the volunteer operator suffers from very heavy local QRM, and callbacks are not always possible. Many operators need a small amount of time to switch from playing a recorded file to using a microphone. Please be mindful of this. This is VK30TN signing clear from today's news and information session. 73 from the RAOTC broadcast team.